may or may not include it on this week's quiz, but you have already been given some examples of this sort of piecemeal, as Atenaze does, for better or for worse. I tend to not always be pleased by the way they sort of feed you things in little tiny bits, because I think that you often don't see the larger constellation of relationships. But they talk to you about indefinite or general clauses of various sorts. So, firstly, I'm going to talk to you about on again. So I introduced on to you when I talked about the subjunctive, because you get this construction on, which is a plus on, meaning if, but if in certain general conditional statements. If it should ever be the case, then we will do this, right? That's the on. That if. And this is a modal adverb. Now, again, Mikhail, if you are going to, unless you pay close attention, you are going to get very confused, because this is not the on of modern Greek, right? The on of modern Greek, which means if, is in fact a contraction of aeon, and you sometimes hear aeon in formal speech. So this is different. It's going to have a different sense from the on of modern Greek. So it's a post-positive adverb, and it accompanies the subjunctive. It also sometimes accompanies the indicative, and this is what reason I'm sort of easing you into some of these topics, because it also sometimes accompanies the optative mood, and that's one of the topics we're going to cover before the semester's out. We probably won't get to the perfect system, but we'll certainly cover the last of the four moods you need to know: the indicative, the imperative, the subjunctive, and the optative. And it's called modal because it qualifies the sense of the mood of the verb in some way. It denotes contingency, potentiality, hypothesis, or something contrary to fact, some unreality. Now, when you get to Homer, he uses a different particle because Homer, right? It's ke in Homer. So, in the secondary past tenses, in the indicative mood, in independent clauses, it expresses unreality or potentiality. Ti an apis, what would you have said? Right? Notice this is secondary tense, it's aorist, indicative. And notice it's also post-positive, right? It's not the first thing in the sentence. Ti an apis. Ti an apis, what would you have said? Epon an, I might have said, but I didn't, right? It expresses unreality in the past. Things that you could have done, but you didn't. And with the imperfect in particular, it emphasizes habitual action. So you can actually throw it in there if you're trying to say, this is something that I used to do in the past habitually. So, epoiun an kon lukon uden kakon. They would, in other words, they used to, they were accustomed to do the wolf no harm. I'm just so excited about the name of my first child, Tutu Lane. I can't write it enough. All right, so it occurs in dependent, relative, and temporal and conditional clauses with a subjunctive to lend a sense of indefiniteness. You might say also generality, uncertain possibility or probability, or general conditions. And what I'm going to emphasize here are these two. We're going to come to a very general discussion of conditional statement, probably at the beginning of next semester. But you've been sort of introduced conditional statements piecemeal. If Grandpa is tired, then he sits down, right? If we should ever go to war with the Peloponnesians, aeon in that case, then it will be terrible. So they've given you a couple examples of conditional clauses where there's an if and there's a then. That's what a conditional statement is. So this combines this conjunction with the conjunction or pronoun introducing the clause. So already I've given you aeon, if, with this particle, with this adverb on. Aeon often becomes ain in Attic Greek. I explained that yesterday. I wish it weren't so, but you are going to see this a lot in ancient authors. So you're going to have to learn to be really careful to distinguish all those things that look like ain to you, or are similar. Because there's a, and a, and a, and ain, and ain, and they all look a lot the same. And I'm sorry I didn't make it that way. Blame the Greeks. Beware of Greeks bringing grammar, because they make it difficult. Hote, when, plus on becomes hotan, right? Whenever. Hostis on is whoever on. Whosoever, right? Etc. Now, I want to say later this term, but I have a feeling that I'm going to have to slow things down enough. The conditional clauses are probably going to be the first, well, no, they're probably going to be the second grammar lesson in next semester. So, notice that I have given you page references in Athena 2, right? So you can read along, you can compare my gloss, my notes with what they give you. See what you like the best. So, a concept similar to that of conditional statements, in other words, if-then statements, particular in the Greek manner of speaking, is that an indefinite or parenthetically you call these general clauses. So I'm going to start with the temporal sort. So you have these sorts of statements. Epeion, epe plus de plus on, heos on, hotan, hote plus on, hopotan, hopote plus on. Right? These can mean whenever, although heos on also means until such a point as. So notice that these all involve this particle on that I introduced you to, which lend a sense of contingency, potentiality, unreality, hypothesis, whatever you're saying. Go figure that we use the subjunctive, because I told you in the lecture about the subjunctive is used when you are dealing with contingency. A verb is subjoined to its primary clause to say, this could be the result of that. That's why quite often we will translate the subjunctive with may or should. And it indicates some intention that can be realized, right? So I want to be able to do this. I want to help. It means that you actually have the possibility of helping. Right? In Greek, you're sort of saying, I want to be able to help. I want that I may help. Hinna, right? That expresses the purpose. It's not been achieved yet. That's why it's in the subjunctive. I stress the you can realize it, because when we get to the optative is, in its basic sense, the wishing mode. That's why it's called optative. It means the wishing mood. And it means things that you desire but you don't think that you might be able to achieve through your intentions. So you'll learn a lot of things. That's why we'll use the optative, because it has to do with things that you desire but which can't be realized, or at least you can't realize them through your intention. So it's going to be subjunctive, and now you know the rules, right? You're going to use the present subjunctive in the aspect, the imperfective aspect, continuous or habitual action. And you're going to use an aorist subjunctive for simple or punctual actions of some sort. So you know the difference between the imperfective and the aorist aspect, or if you prefer, the present the aorist aspect. So same rules as before, with constructions to hinna or hopos or hos and so forth. Alright, and then a result clause, which is, I put parenthetically called an hypothesis. We'll deal with that when I cover conditional statements thoroughly. Containing a finite verb of the appropriate aspect. So let us have a look at a few and see what I'm talking about. Here is a definite temporal clause. When, you've seen this before, epe, right? When, one is several words, for when, the other one is hos, which is used for everything. In the same way that English uses that for everything, the Greeks feel entitled, listen, if we're going to use that for everything, we're going to use hos for everything in ancient Greek. Right? But epe eisto astu afikometa prostein agoran estusanen. When we arrived, actual fact, indicative, right? Simple statement. At the city, we hastened, aorist indicative, toward the marketplace. Both these are aorist indicatives. Right? That's a simple statement. It's introduced by epe, when. So that's your temporal clause. When we arrive, tells you, puts the temporal conditions on things. And then the result of that, within the temporal circumscription, within those circumstances, then we continue towards the city, right? We hasten to the city. What then is an indefinite example? This. Epedan. Eistun astu iomen. Frosten agoran spudomen. Right? So, whenever we go to the city, we hasten to the marketplace. So, you have epedan plus a subjunctive. Now, this could be, I could put aegometha, whenever we arrive, which would have been a better contrast, but in which case is whenever we arrive, aorist, or 6 primary endings, it would be afikomen, whenever we arrive. Afikomen. Right? Whenever we arrive at the city. Phrase punctual action. We hasten to the marketplace. We, in fact, do hasten. Definite example. Here I've used theos, which means until. So, hoi spatiotai emakonto theos happantes ethison. This is a strengthened form of pas, by the way. Happas means altogether, every last one, right? Just a strengthened form. So the Spartans, right, fought or were fighting, right? That in fact is imperfect. Theos until happantes ethison. Notice here you have an indicative form. So the Spartans fought until they had all fallen, or they all fell. That's an actual statement of fact. It's an indicative. Indefinite, that is to say general. Hoi sparteote makuntai. They fight in general, just like I used an indicative here. Spulomen, we do in fact, in the present. Continuous. They fight. Heos aran. Happantes piptosi. Right? That is, in fact, subjunctive. You can see that I hope this is a present subjunctive. Well, those would be piptusi, right, in the indicative. But it has the lengthened o. Right? So this is general statement. The Spartans fight until they all fall. In general. Until it should be the case, when they happen to be fighting, you're setting a hypothesis, they all fall. Fight to the last man. Getting your head around the concept a little bit? These are concrete. This is someone stating an actual fact. Right? He's relating something which is factual. This is something related that's factual. It's presumably what someone like Dick would say. Oh, Bilipe, oh, Philip. The Spartans fought until everyone fell, right? Then he might say, it's the general truth. The Spartans fight until every one of them ever falls on any occasion, until they should ever fall. I mean, you can use helper verbs in there to express the idea of the unreality of it. This will be true going forward, is what he's saying. Not actually happen, but if they fight, we can count this happening. Likewise, Dick might say, in general, whenever we go or when we arrive, whenever we arrive at the marketplace, right, we hasten, or whenever we arrive at the city, we hasten the marketplace. He's talking about things that have not yet happened. So this is a general statement, so it's still hypothetical, at least in some part. Make sense?
Yes.
Kinda. Probably won't include it in this week's quiz, but you're going to see these soon. A lot of them. And just be aware of the fact that aeon does the same thing. So on, you're going to see on put together with various things that express a general condition or a possibility. Often will be combined with other words like a or hote or something of the sort, and it's going to be followed by the subjunctive. Right, again, page numbers. Relative clauses come in two types in Greek. The basic type you already learned, right, where the antecedent is known for certain, right, and a type in which the antecedent is general or indefinite. Right, in the latter type, the so-called general or indefinite sort, we have our relative pronouns with on. And in fact, I don't even need to say hos is on, it will apply here. Hos on, he on, ho on will do just as well. We'll see those in fact. This does not mean which or who or which or what. It means whoever, whatever, under any conditions. Right? As many as is what this means. There may be, on, hypothetical. And like I said, you get this with hos, he, ho, etc. Sometimes with emphatic pompous. All those who do this. And again, it follows the same pattern we saw before. The finite form of the verb in such cases is put in the subjunctive mood. Present and representing a continuous repeated or habitual action. Aorist representing a concrete punctual act, as usual. So, for example, Heites an tutto poiese que mes axia esten. Whoever. In fact, it'd be sort of more emphatic, because this means whoever by itself. It means she feminitis. Some her, right? But whosoever does this, notice I put may here to emphasize that this is subjunctive. You can also say should as a helper verb. Whoever should do this, under some conditions, right, is worthy of honor. Estet axia temes. So this means under any conditions, whoever should do this. Hostes an exoton kekon mene apotenetai hypoton polemion. Right, so whoever or whosoever, right? Under any conditions, right? Right, so whoever, subjunctive, right, remains. Notice that doesn't just mean stay or wait, right? Meno can mean to remain, right? Remains exoton tegon, outside of the walls, future apon. Tane kai hypon polemion will be killed by the enemy. Notice that's a good example of an agent expressed with a genitive plus couplot. That is, like, will be killed. Pantaha un bulon kai hexusen. Everything that they should ever want, may want, etc., they will have. So this is an emphatic. Ha on. Those things which they should, may, hypothetical, ever want, and just emphatically, all the things that they may ever want. In modern Greek, this would be olosa, right? They should ever want, they will have. I'm going to show you this again next semester, but I threw this in because it may be useful to review. So it's known as the correlation of pronouns or pronominal adjectives. It shows the correspondences between a lot of things that you've been learning. So whenever tis or ti, who or what, or on account of what, why, is asked, the indefinite response looks the same without the accent. If I ask who, you may say tis, some dude, right? If I ask what, you might say tis, something. Right? So this is a set of correspondences that I put in there because it is relevant to the examples I've given you just now, and also because they started to give you, starting this chapter, they've introduced you poioste, such things, and you have had tos utos already, which is an intensive form of so many. Alright, the remaining part of this is some uses of the infinitive, which are pretty straightforward. The articular infinitive you're going to see in the next couple of chapters. It sounds fancy. It sounds like it should be some sort of, I don't know, something you'd learn about in human anatomy. But it's not that complicated. All it really means is the infinitive with an article, with a definite article accompanying it.
With or without?
Well, with, right? Now, I'm going to go over, this is sort of a review. Without the definite article, that's why it's emphatic there, can be, right, subject of a finite form of the verb. Or it can be the direct object of another infinitive, right? So, it happened, this is impersonal, by the way, notice it happened, it took place, that was in your last homework. What's happening in the city? Well, what's happening is the He Ecclesia Dignitas is taking place. It happened that to him to go, literally, for him to go. So these are basically some uses of the infinitive you've seen without the article before, right? He, she, it says that it's possible for them to say, ex enai tutos menain, right? That's just the infinitive of XSD, right? But followed by fixin. He, she, it's, right? Says it to be possible for them to stay, literally, staying is possible, right? And you get things like gnonai epistemain lavein estin. To learn is to grasp. That's to say, to acquire knowledge. Episteme. This is actually from Plato, right? To know is to grasp knowledge. So you have infinitives juxtaposed with one another without the article, right? Now, why is this latter one important? Because this use of the infinitive, essentially the infinitive being used like a noun. In English, when we can take a verb and turn it into a nominal form, we use what's called a gerund. So the way of expressing this in English would be, learning is grasping knowledge. Now be careful, because English has conflated two forms that have quite distinct meanings. We have the ing of the present active participle, running. That describes something, right? The running man. This is the running in the sense of running is type 2 fun. We had a good discussion about this morning. I like his typology of fun. Right? Running is sometimes it's type 1 fun for people. Sometimes it's type 3 fun. But fun in any case. Running is always fun. Notice it's a noun. It's not qualifying anything. That's called the gerund in English. Gerund is the verbal noun. But Greek doesn't have them, so it has to use the infinitive to express the same thing. And this is where the articular form is going to be important. Very often, the infinitive is used in this way is preceded by the definite article to mark it more clearly as a substantive. And notice that I say definite article, but it's actually redundant to say that in Greek because there's only one article. But I do that for clarity's sake, because in English we distinguish between an indefinite and a definite article. Hence it's called the articular infinitive, because it's got the article. Right? To gnonai epistemi laein estin. Did I tell again? Right? The to know. But of course we don't say the to know in English. We've expressed it as a gerund. Simply knowing is to seize knowledge, to grasp knowledge. An understanding, episteme, to grasp an understanding. Tutu estin to adikain. This is wrongdoing. We make that wrongdoing as a gerund in English. To do wrong, the wrongdoing. Right? Adekeo means to do something wrong in ancient Greek. Here's an object sometimes. Pleisomai to katatanein. Right? I shall suffer dying. Right? Literally, I will suffer to die. That's the literal meaning. But you have to get accustomed to seeing this and knowing that you should not try to calque it into English, to trace it as to die, because that doesn't make any sense in English. We'll use a gerund instead. To dran, right? To act. Uk et eleisad. They did not want acting, literally, to do something. They didn't want activity. They did not want to act. Acting, they did not want. So, okay, so it can depend on other nouns and be governed by prepositions. Notice that the inflection of the article changes when it's governed by something else, but the shape of the infinitive is immutable. Notice the infinitive, although it originally seems in fact to be a noun that has an old locative ending on it, right, in the action of some sort, is what you're saying, it has become grammaticalized, which means it no longer goes through an ordinary inflection process. However, its article will. So, for example, right, they are capable of invading, to invade into our land, right, to invade into our land. He kanoiase, right, they are capable of doing it, but pro tu apodunai tus horcus, before the taking. Apodunai is not going to have a special ending, but its article will. That's because the infinitive is immutable. It doesn't change. Just a noun that's become fossilized, in that particular with that funny ending on it. But the article we know inflects. Notice, by the way, the negative is with may. I told you that the u is with the indicative, as a rule, but may is with subjunctive, optative, infinitives, participles, and non-finite forms as well. So, huper tu me gignestai, in the interest of moderation, the moderate things literally, not happening. So I put literally in the interest of not to happen moderate things, is what you're saying in Greek. Right? Huper tu, you've had that in the sense of on behalf of, right? In the interest of. Tu me gignestai, clementra. Enough to happen. And other uses, you have this with reported speech, indirect discourse. I'm going to pick up on that tomorrow. I think that's something which we need some practice with. I've introduced it to you. They keep throwing it at you, but it's probably worth revising and expanding. However, the reason I want to go over it a little bit tomorrow is because you are going to have, before you know it, you're going to have the optative mood. Right? And indirect discourse, reported speech in the past can, and in fact usually does, involve the use of the optative. Right? Epenhoti grafoi. He said that he was writing. And that's your optative form. And then this is the thing that came up yesterday in class, but I'm going to pick up on this at the beginning of class tomorrow, because we had this example in the speech, the beginning of the speech by Pericles. But you get infinitives that limit adjectives or adverbs. And you were first introduced to this with Philip being particularly denos, terrific. That's something, that idiomatic usage of terrible. Doesn't literally mean terrible, like terrifying. Right? So, denos esti nein. She's terrific, great at swimming. Notice in English, once again, we use a preposition plus a gerund. But there being no gerund. In Greek, they have to say, she is great to swim. Which makes it sound like it's an active verb. Right? You're like, I'm swimming her. Ah, get off me. No, it means that it's intransitive. She's great at swimming. Right? And likewise, we have something like this in your prior reading. Do not post tuto poiein. capable of doing this. But in Greek, you have to say capable to do this. So it limits an adjective and sometimes an adverb in this fashion as well. Not nearly as many uses of the infinitive as there are of the participle. Thank heavens. Right? Doxa toistoi teois. But it's something you're enough to get used to because Greek lacks a gerund. It doesn't have a verbal noun like we do with ing forms in English. All right. See you next time. Bye.